These horrific pictures of the aftermath of recent attacks have, after more than 2 years of war in Syria, prompted the strongest words yet from the Obama administration. Secretary of State John Kerry made it clear the US is certain chemical weapons were used and that he knows who they were used by.
The first-hand accounts from humanitarian organizations on the ground, like Doctors Without Borders and the Syria Human Rights Commission, these all strongly indicate that everything these images are already screaming at us is real, that chemical weapons were used in Syria. Moreover, we know that the Syrian regime maintains custody of these chemical weapons. We know that the Syrian regime has the capacity to do this with rockets. We know that the regime has been determined to clear the opposition from those very places where the attacks took place. And with our own eyes, we have all of us become witnesses.
After a day of phoning world leaders, the Secretary of State again watched the videos of the aftermath of the attack.
It is really hard to express in words the human suffering that they lay out before us. As a father, I can't get the image out of my head of a man who held up his dead child, wailing while chaos swirled around him. The images of entire families dead in their beds without a drop of blood or even a visible wound. Bodies contorting in spasms. Human suffering that we can never ignore or forget. Anyone who could claim that an attack of this staggering scale could be contrived or fabricated needs to check their conscience and their own moral compass.
The Syrian government had been accused of stalling, but UN inspectors were finally able to begin their work, setting out for the sites where it's believed the latest chemical weapons attacks took place. But there was still someone trying to stop them. The lead vehicle in their convoy was targeted by snipers. Opposition activists were quick to blame the Shabiha pro-government militia, but the UN said it couldn't determine which side was responsible. Its scientists have now gathered evidence and taken samples, but even in their final report, their UN mandate does not, again, allow them to determine which side was responsible. What some diplomats here at the UN are now privately predicting is a short targeted operation by the US, UK and France, probably using cruise missiles. Russia and China would protest, saying it was illegal, but others say there's a moral justification. In the words of John Kerry, the use of chemical weapons is a moral obscenity, the violation of an international norm for which there should be accountability. The final decision on a US response will be made by the Commander-in-Chief himself. He's already involved in a war in Afghanistan, and at this ceremony was honouring members of his military fighting it. Barack Obama's always been very cautious on Syria, but the words of his Secretary of State suggest he's closer than ever to launching military action against the Assad regime. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.